Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to the Get Your Bell Rung Football Podcast. He is Kevin Reynolds. I am Bobby Wall, and we are here to talk all things football and hit you with some takes that might rattle you up a bit. On tonight's show, we will start looking into some of our favorite draft strategies. Kevin might not know this because he doesn't look at the show notes. But he does at least know that we are going to dissect the NFC East this evening. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, buddy. How are you doing?
I am great. Did you know we're going to talk about draft strategies?
No.
Okay, didn't think so. So go ahead and start thinking some up. I got two things. Number one, there's something about this show that I don't like.
Is it yourself? Because
there are two things about this show that I don't like. I don't like that it's once a week, because when I get in here and like all week long, I'm thinking about stuff, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm doing research. I have a lot more to say than just 1 hour's worth of content a week. Now, there's not a whole lot we could do about that. I'm not sure how much more people want to hear our voices, but I love it. And an hour out of the week is not enough for me.
I don't really know how to go at that. This time of year, an hour is pretty good for me. Not that I don't want to talk more about football and discuss it, and I just have very little time. So I do my thing here, and we try to get as much out as we can in our hour.
Yep.
But yes, you and I talk about football a lot every month of the year except for June, July, August, because it's a little hectic for me.
I also don't know what to do when the intro music is playing. I mean, it's a lot easier.
Ricky Bobby. Radio.
I don't know what to do with my hands. Maybe I have to go to it. Maybe that'll be my go-to, because I don't know. Am I supposed to dance? Am I supposed to bang my head? I mean, I don't know what to do. Sit here and stare at the camera.
My tennis students, a girl, she's an 8th grader. I told her she needs to watch Talladega Nights, because when she hits, she always takes her hand and sort of like, she never knows where to put her other hand. So instead of like leading with her hand, like we would do with any kind of striking movement or throwing, we lead with our opposite hand. It's just sort of there. So I told her she needs to watch Talladega Nights, because I told her, you could just even start doing this. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
It's probably a solid coaching move on your part. Her parents will be appreciate that.
It's a fine movie. Ricky Bobby. I mean, shake and bake.
That's correct. Someone else who's shaking and baking is my man Debo Samuel, buddy. He got paid, and I love it. I know we have a big time listener on the show, John McGrogan. He is not a fan of when receivers get paid. That usually causes him to pause and lower them in his rankings. However, for me, I'm glad this is done, taken care of, out of the way. And also the incentives in his contract, he gets paid extra. I think it's if every year that he reaches, I think 350 rushing yards and so many rushing touchdowns, I think he gets bonuses, and they're fairly significant. So I love it, man. This is ideal for me. And especially in my league of record, he is my keeper this year. I'm pretty sure it's going to be him. So I'm loving everything about this Debo deal.
Yeah, I saw he mentioned that all these rumors have been swirling for months around him that he didn't want to be used that way anymore. Were all false, bull crap, that he is fine with however they want to use him. But unfortunately, some people have him on record that, he did say these things. He even tweeted about it at one point. So whatever, he's just putting that back in the bag and moving on now that he has his money. The ridiculous contract, because he earned that. But Deontay Johnson,
yeah, sure.
I mean, are you for real that they gave him that much money? Third drops a lot.
I think they felt backed into a corner because he was doing his old hold-in thing, and if he didn't get paid, he wasn't gonna play, I guess. So they were just like, fine, we'll give you 2 years and 27 million guaranteed or whatever it was. I don't know. They just needed him to play, I guess, and that was the only way to do it.
I guess they really need somebody to drop passes.
I mean, he's been productive. I mean, he was Big
Ben's
go-to guy.
You get 19 targets a game. Of course, you're going to throw up some numbers. But are they
Sure.
really going to do that? I mean, he's the only guy Ben would throw to. It's just mind boggling. The Steelers don't usually bow down to that kind of pressure. I was just sort of surprised they did. So yeah, maybe they know something we don't.
Very true. And I agree. I wouldn't have paid him that, but whatever. And then the other thing I want to touch on with the Miami Dolphins got busted for tampering. They lose a first round pick in 2023. They lose a third round pick in 2024. And that's basically because in 2019, when Tom Brady was with the Patriots, Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, tried to get him on Miami's team, and then tried again in 2020, and then tried again in 2021 when he was with the Buccaneers. He also tried to get Sean Payton to come coach for him when Payton was still under contract with the Saints. This dude is acting like there are no rules, and it is the Wild West. And they deserve. Oh, he also got fined $1.5 million. Can't attend any meetings till mid-October or something. They brought the hammer down, and they should have.
I thought it was a brilliant way for them to change the whole narrative and get people talking about something other than say it.
Deshaun Watson.
Yes, I knew I could make you say it.
So obviously no one knows this, but before we got on the show, when it was off air, I told Kevin that I was not going to say the name Deshaun Watson because I'm tired of talking about it, but he was able to make it happen. So good for you, Kevin.
Talk about it more, but the NFL is just so freaking wishy-washy with what they find, what they don't. Every team in the league tampers. It's just whatever anymore. Like, I don't even care.
Can I tell you what I think?
Draft pick. They'll trade a player and get 13 number ones for him anyway. So it's all just sort of silliness and just like said, something to fill the air. So there's something to talk about in the NFL.
So for me, honestly, this feels like they looked into this because they said they found this when they were looking up the Brian Flores stuff. And is there racial bias in hiring coaches and firing coaches, and was he paid to lose games and this and that? And they came out, well, apparently someone did say, well, yeah, we give you $100,000 for every game you lose, but it was supposed to be taken in jest, like it was supposed to be a joke.
Yeah.
This has a feel to me where Goodell called his buddy Stephen Ross and was like, look, you're guilty of all of this. What we should do is kick you out of the league. You can no longer own the Dolphins, force you to sell. However, since you're my guy, how about instead we catch you on tampering rather than, the big one where you're going to pay your coach to lose. You know what I mean? It's like they took the lesser, even though he was guilty of all of it, They don't want it to come out that way. So they take the lesser penalty and nail him for that.
Yeah,
that has the feel for me.
Right. Slap on the wrist. Take one for the team for us here, buddy. We're taking some PR hits here. Take one on the team. Take one on the wrist for everybody. And here we go. We'll let you off with all the other stuff. Just do this little thing. You get a little fine. A couple things that aren't even going to really matter, but it'll take the heat off of us on some other things, and we'll all move on.
100%.
It's hard to get them to sell a team. Some like 24 of the 32 teams have to agree to force an owner, and even then they have recourse from that.
Yeah, but
it's not Goodell. Goodell can't do it. He's been very clear. He can't. He told Congress like a month ago, I can't make anybody sell their team. They're my bosses. I can't
go on Daniel Snyder. Yeah, but
I'm just saying that when he was testifying about that, I don't want to get all into him. I'm saying it's not as easy as Goodell saying you got to sell your team now because I don't like. He can't legally do that. That's not in his power.
Right. But if it came out and it's like, yeah, Ross was paying his coach to lose games,
he could recommend
24 of the other NFL teams would vote him out.
Most likely. And yeah, I agree. They should. Yeah, they should.
All right. So normally we do a listener question. So and we're kind of doing a spin on that. But we are entering. It is August, so we're entering draft season. Obviously, some people the crazy nuts, they draft all the time, but really draft season starts in August for most. And rather than answer one listener question like we have before, we're going to go into some draft strategy. I've had a couple listeners ask about what are some of our favorite draft strategies, and I thought we'd go over a couple each week throughout the month of August to help our folks out. And since you, as known by all, do not look at the show notes, you do not know this was coming. So I'll go over one of mine, and that is to go into every draft with a plan, but write that plan in pencil. You have to adapt to the draft. You have to be able to break that eraser out and say, this is what I wanted to do. However, not going to be able to do it. You have to have a backup plan for your backup plan. So like if you want Josh Allen in the second, and if that doesn't work out, you want Mahomes in the third, but both of them are gone by the time you come around to pick, you can't let it bother. You got to roll with the punches. You need to own the draft, not the other way around. And don't be afraid to go completely rogue if you have to. Do you remember, obviously, zero RB strategy is, I wouldn't say it's as big now as it has been the previous years, but 2015, 2016, 2017, it started gaining notoriety, right? That's where you don't draft the running back in the first couple rounds.
It
was a fact. Yeah. Right. And I feel like we're kind of getting out of that now, but I have to give a shout out, and I do this every year, for one of my best friends, Dan Coons. He is in my league of record. We've been in it forever. And the year, I'm going to take you all the way back to 2013 before anyone had ever even heard of zero RB. And it was first round, gets to him. He takes Calvin Johnson. Okay, no big deal. But back, if you think 2013, you're taking one or two running backs in the first two rounds, and that's everybody. Comes around the second round, he takes AJ Green. The draft room erupted because we were all there, live draft. We try to do it every year. And it was like, what is this guy doing? He doesn't have a single running back. Most of the teams have two. Third round comes around. He does take Frank Gore. Fourth round, Peyton Manning. And it is just, this guy is a moron. What is he doing? Because now, granted, he took a running back in round 3, but only one in his first 4 picks. That was unheard of back then. We're talking almost a decade ago, right? He ended up finishing third in the league that year. So going rogue for him and doing technically zero RB before it was cool, it worked out for him. So don't be afraid to do that if that's what the draft gives you.
I think the problem with zero RB is that's the anomaly. That's the exception to the rule. Nobody talks about the other 5 guys who did it and came in the last 5 spots in the league, because over and over teams, you get screwed with that strategy. And people only ever talk about the successful ones. Well, if there's one successful one for the 19 crap drafts, well, that it wasn't really that successful at all. But yeah, there's always the anomaly. You might find somebody lucky on waivers, this, that, the other. Or my buddy George has been doing this strategy since the mid 90s when we were doing fantasy. George recently retired from fantasy sports because they were driving him insane. And I think I told you he retired from all leagues, all sports.
I get it.
He's really done. He wrote this really long, well wrote thing out to me and a couple other commissioners, and it made perfect sense. All I said was good luck in your retirement, because I was like, God, I wish I could join him. But that's beside to the point. That's besides what he would do. He would take like 6 of his first 7 guys would all be big time, big wide receiver that was still left, and was convinced that it would be just great draft bait. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. Worked out some form. Other times you just got killed. So I'm not big on zero RB, but you're right. If it let the chips fall where they may, sometimes it just sort of happens.
That's right. Do you have one? Have you had time to think of one, since this was a big surprise for you?
Well, see, I don't really think of draft strategies per se, because I need to think of the teams or the format of the league. How many teams? Like say zero RB, and say like my league of record, even though you don't draft, it's auction. If you don't there's 16 teams. If you're in a 16-team league and you go zero RB, you're done. You might as well just be, because we all love donators. Just call yourself a donator. Say, here's my money. I'm not even gonna run my team. You guys run it for me the rest of the year, because I don't have a chance.
So there's your strategy. If you're in a larger league, make sure you nab some running backs, because the pool is shallower.
You have to have one, because say if there's only 32 starters in the league, and there's other guys, of course, obviously get some points, your Hunts and those, but man, if if your number one back isn't even a starter in the league, you're going to be in trouble for the whole season. And of course that matters too. Like say my league, you have to play one running back, at least one running back and two receivers, and then you have two flex spots. So you could play one running back and four receivers each week. And so that's, and then when you think of that, that's even more though that you could go zero because you only have to play one running back. So you could potentially wait till the third or fourth round, get that one running back you're going to play each week, and then stack up on wide receivers. It matters too if it's half point PPR, full point, or no point. Those things matter. There's just strategies have to be so fluid based on the parameters of your league. Do you actually write down a strategy? You said write it in pencil. Was that more of just the figurative, or you mean literally you write it? Because some people do. There's some people that have whole lists. And
listen, if I actually had to write down my plan, like physically write it down by now, I shouldn't be talking on this microphone right now. No,
some people do. A lot of people do. It's the only way they can keep it straight and keep. And that's fine,
especially as a beginner. Please, if that helps you, do it. Do whatever helps you.
See, the great thing about a redraft league is your turn only comes up every so often. Say like my league of record draft. Being a endless. Oh yeah, snake or straight up just an actual drafting league. Where my auction league, you got to be on the edge of your seat for every single pick, or some guy might have just went and you didn't even realize it happened. Because you could potentially get four players in a row, spend your whole wad, and then you sit there for 5 hours because you don't have any money to bid with.
You're not just getting up in the middle of an auction draft to grab a bite to eat or grab a drink.
Absolutely not, because you go back and there just went your handcuff. Never even had a shot at him.
And then my other strategy, I said for this show, and we'll do a couple in our next few episodes, but know your league mates, know who they are, and obviously if you're first time in league, that's not going to happen. But once you get entrenched in a league, do they take running backs early, like my home league does? You got to know that. Do lots of guys, like you said, do lots of guys like zero RB? Are 5 guys in your league going to go after zero RB? If it is, stack those running backs early. If there's zigging, you need to zag. Or quarterbacks, are they going early? If they are, then wait. Or are they going late? Are you sitting there in the 7th, 8th round, Lamar Jackson staring at you in the face? Scoop him up. I got, like I said, I think in our last draft or our last episode, or maybe when I did the mock draft episode, I got 2 or 3 guys in the league that they're going to take 2, maybe even 3 tight ends. If I know that and I don't get one early, then that's it, man. I'm punting a position and I'm waiting till like the last bit. So know your league mates.
Yeah. I love draft day. It's one of the more exciting days of the year. It's like Christmas. Well, really more Christmas Eve. I do love, but one thing I love about the once and done is not having to have a draft.
Interesting.
It is. It's different. It's just different. You don't have to have a draft. You just have your team, whatever you want to do all year long, and it's just sort of refreshing to not have to put 5-6 hours of my day into a draft. But I do love draft day. Draft day is all, especially when you get some of the boys over. You're all there on your pews. Everybody else is on a big Zoom meeting or conference call. Yep. And not like it was when we were younger, where everybody all gets together and chugging beers and having a good time. But it's still fun.
Lots of fun. Actually, we do my league record. We try to do drafts in different places.
Right.
So 2 years ago, we did it on a boat. Last year we did it in Baltimore. A lot of guys are from Maryland. This year we're doing it at a beach in North Carolina, so a little more local for me. I love that too, man. Destination drafts, that's where it's at.
Yeah, I wish we still could in our league, but man, 16 guys,
it's
all
tough. The older you
late
get,
30s to late 40s, kids. We're separated by many, many hundreds of miles. It's hard enough to even get all 16 at a certain time online, let alone meeting in person. But man, I wish we could. It'd be really cool to do one last time.
We got a guy flying in from Seattle, another guy flying in from Dallas, so it's wild.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, sir. NFC East. We're going to start with your Super Bowl champion prediction, the Dallas Cowboys. They are plus 1,800. Last year, they were 12-5 and the champs of the NFC East. They were the number 1 team in scoring offense, 2nd in passing, 9th in rushing. They're the number 7th defense. They were 20th in passing, 16th in rushing defense. Some big losses for them: Lael Collins, Connor Williams along the offensive line. They also trade away Amari Cooper. And now Michael Gallup and James Washington are both hurt in the wide receiver room. And they lost Randy Gregory on defense. They did gain Tyler Smith along the O-line and Jalen Tolbert, wide receiver, in the draft. Smith, he's raw. He's prone to a lot of penalties. He's nasty. We'll see how quickly he can get acclimated to the NFL game. And Tolbert, man, he's going to be thrust right into playing time right now. He's the wide receiver 2 on that team. They have CeeDee Lamb, and then they have Jalen Tolbert, and that's it, man.
Gallup. He's uninspiring.
Agreed.
But I just don't think that losing only Cooper is going to just decimate their offense. I don't think they'll be number 1 in the league, but I still think they'll be solid. Dak's too good.
They'll definitely be top 10 for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not real worried. They're going to be strong. I think they'll probably go like 11-6. Eagles will probably go around 10-7. They'll both get in the playoffs, and the Cowboys will beat your Chargers in the Super Bowl.
Okay. Well, I was with you until then. A team that is most likely not going to make the playoffs are the New York Giants. They are plus 13,000 for a Super Bowl title. They were 4-13 last year, 4th in the NFC East. Their offense was 31st last year, and they were 23rd in defense. And honestly, they really weren't good anywhere on either side of the ball. They were first in turnover percentage, so at least they were first in something. You may not want to lead that category, but, you at least got a trophy. And it's tough. You got Joe Judge and Jason Garrett, and I have no idea how the Maras thought that was a solid hiring. But they added Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau in the draft. They got Mark Lewinsky to help with that offensive line, a much improved offensive line. And obviously the 2 biggest additions are Brian Dable, who we know from his time in Buffalo and what he did there with their offense, and their offensive coordinators, Mike Kafka. He's an Andy Reid disciple. So you got to feel good if you're a Giants fan having those 2 guys calling the shots.
The problem is the team's pretty much the same as it was last year, except for a couple rookies. So maybe the most overpaid team in NFL history last year for what they were paid, for what they produced.
Do you remember those numbers for the wide receivers? I know you said it was,
but they were they're the highest paid receiver core in the league. And
maybe not now with all these trades and re-signings and all that stuff. But
their receivers, I do remember their wide receivers as a group had 5 touchdowns on the entire season. And Kenny Golladay had a grand total of 0 of them.
I saw him catch one in a camp today on Twitter, so that's good.
Yeah, but that's not quite the same, is it, brother?
That's not.
No, dude, the thing is, these guys, they got nowhere to go but up. I don't think they've gotten worse. So you never know. Maybe they'll come in there, a whole new regime, a new style. Maybe they can get Daniel Jones to at least be serviceable. You've got some weapons, but they're always hurt. They look just completely discombobulated last year. They're in a division that the teams aren't super strong. I guess you never know. But yeah, these guys, I don't see them making much noise.
Agreed. Then we move on to my Eagles. They are plus 2,500 for the Super Bowl, 9-8 last year. They made the wild card. They got spanked by the Buccaneers. 12th scoring offense, 18th in defense. They were last in the league in pass attempts, 2nd in rushing attempts, but 1st in rushing yards. As far as losses go, there's really no one of consequence that popped out to me as far as who they lost, but they have a ton of additions. Them and the Chargers, I'd say, have the most additions in the offseason as far as impactful positions. They get A.J. Brown. They get Cam Jurgens, who's going to, obviously, you're going to have injuries along your offensive line. He's going to be able to fill in there, rookie, and probably be the starter next year at center. They grabbed Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean on defense in the draft. They signed pass rusher Hassan Reddick from the Panthers, who had double-digit sacks last year. James Bradbury, one of the better corners in the league. And, man, there's a lot of excitement going on here in Philly, at least for me. They began last year throwing the ball and losing. They were 2-5. And then and this is a hats off to Nick Sirianni, because we talk all the time about coaches are way too stubborn to change their ways. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he stepped back, was like 2-5. This is not working out. So they changed it and they started running the ball. They finished the year 7-3. They also have PFF's #1 offensive line. So there are a lot of good signs for this Eagles team this year.
I agree. I think I sort of talked you into him,
You did,
Sirianni. Uh,
Sirianni.
because you weren't fond of him at one point, and I told you about later in the season. I was like, dude, but he did the one thing that NFL coaches never do. He swallowed his pride, put his ego aside, changed everything, and now they're winning. So that's all you can ask for in a coach. If things are going great, please don't change. If things aren't going great, please change. And he was willing to do that, and took, whereas so many coaches want to make their players bend to their style. He said, no, I'm going to bend to your style. I'm going to put you in the best position to win. And I guarantee you still, I'm with you on these guys. It's the biggest cliche in sports, but if I'm on any other NFC team, I do not want to play these guys in the playoffs.
Sirianni for me was just uninspiring at the hire, but you're 100% right. When you're able to adapt and modify your coaching strategies and what you're putting out there each and every week, your schemes and all that stuff, hats off to you, sir. Well done.
He changed the whole thing, the whole mindset of it. It's like he flipped the switch, and
they're buying in.
Didn't lose. And man, boy, they got some weapons there. This team, like I said, I flip-flop back and forth with them in Dallas. I still think Dallas will barely win the division. And I don't really think the Cowboys will win the Super Bowl. That was our bold, our bold predictions. But yeah, I don't. This is not a team I want to see in January. And certainly not in Philly, but cold, people throwing batteries at you. I don't want any of that. Right.
That was once, maybe twice. The Commanders, Washington, they are plus 7,000. They were 7-10 last year, third in the division. They were 23rd in offense, 25th in defense. I have no qualms with the offense finishing 23rd. That makes sense, especially with your issues at quarterback. But the defense, if you remember, they were supposed to be one of the best defenses in the league.
Underperformers, ridiculous.
Injuries played a part, but right out of the gate, they were 2-6. And the defense wasn't doing it even when they were healthy. They lost Brandon Scherf, this is big time. He is one of the best guards in the league. He is now at Jacksonville. They did add, obviously, Wentz. So as uninspiring as Wentz is, he is better than what they had. And they added Jahan Dotson and Brian Robinson in the draft. They should both make an impact this year. It'll be interesting to see if they are top 12 in rushing attempts now that they have a quarterback who can throw the ball. So I'm interested to see how that plays out.
It's funny that you said Wentz is better than what they had, yet the odds makers of the world don't feel that way, because about an hour after they signed him, their odds of winning the Super Bowl got worse.
I think that's because they weren't sure.
Speaking for yourself there, Mr. Waugh.
I think it's because they weren't sure who the quarterback was going to be, and then they figured out who it was. And no, that's not great.
Yeah, but look, these guys, they'll win a couple games they shouldn't. They'll probably win like 5 games, maybe a 6th one. I
really like Taylor Heineke. I like the story, Old Dominion University, all that stuff. But Wentz is better than him.
They're too over down. They don't utilize the best weapon they have on the team, Gibson.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
It's no, I'm just saying we're talking about. And I know they've changed. You're right. Trying to change the culture there. Ron Rivera's the man, but just such a poorly run organization for so long. It's like they just can't get out of their own way.
I saw this is way back, 2010 maybe. I was at a game and I saw a guy with a shirt on, and this wasn't. Maybe it was before 2010. I don't remember seeing it often, but this guy had a jersey on, and on the back he had sewn on "Fire Snyder." And it was the first time I'd seen that. And I thought that was great, because I was like, you know what? He really is the problem, and you can't fire the owner. No. But I saw that at a Redskins game. And I thought, man, this is your own fan base wants to fire you. And this is more than a decade ago. So
yeah, he's just the worst. I don't know any other owner in any other professional sport that you could really even compare him to. He's just, and rough. It turns out now he's not just an awful owner. Seems as though he's a pretty awful human being. So
it does appear that way. Let's move on to the quarterbacks here. We'll start with Dak Prescott of the Cowboys, a guy that you and I both like. He was last year's QB7, QB8 in points per game, almost 4,500 yards and 37 touchdowns. He's actually never been lower than QB 11 in his career, not counting 2020 when he was hurt. 2019, he was QB 2, so he got that high. He is going to have to shoulder the load this year. They lost Amari Cooper. Their O-line is worse. So a lot of it's going to fall on him. And it's the Cowboys, both in real life and in fantasy, they're going to rise or fall with him, I think. And the Cowboys play fast. They were second pace of play last year, which is good. Gives everyone more opportunities. Dak was number 1 in red zone accuracy. So that dude is money when it counts. And that's a tough place to be accurate in. His first 4 years, he never had less than 277 rushing yards. He also had 21 total rushing touchdowns. He got hurt in 2020. Obviously, that was down. He didn't rush that much last year. But I wouldn't be surprised if we got back up to the 250 rushing yards, maybe 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns. And that would really boost him. I actually have him as my QB5 right now, above Joe Burrow, above some other guys that consensus tells me he shouldn't be in front of.
Yeah, he's a beast. I love Dak. Always have. I can slang it. There's not a lot to say about the guy. The stats speak for themselves. The wins speak for themselves. You're right. Maybe now it's going to fall a little bit more on him. But from a fantasy perspective, sometimes that's a great thing. Just rack up some more stats. Might not lead to more wins, but we don't get any points for wins in any leagues I'm in. So yeah, that should go early.
Rodgers did it for years with a good running game and Devontae Adams. Well, Dak's got a decent running game, and he's got CeeDee Lamb. So we're going to see.
And hopefully they'll use CeeDee Lamb more. We were both last year very disappointed about how little they utilized him. And when they did, it was just silly stuff that he had no real chance.
Yeah, I expect a big jump for him. I'm going to probably ring some bells when we talk about him. But first, we got to get to Daniel Jones. And as excited as we are about Dak, it is really tough to get excited about Daniel Jones. He misses games every year. 220 passing yards a game, 63% completion percent. He had 10 touchdowns in 11 games last year. He had 11 in 14 games in 2020. He has hypothetical rushing upside. He can run. I watched him run like 80 yards before he tripped and fell on his face. He does right now have the most weapons he's had. And he also has great coaching. If it doesn't happen this year, man, that's it.
Yeah, he's got to move on. Yeah, this is it. They'll have to pull the ripcord after the season if he can't improve, not just improve a little. He's got to really significantly say to them, like, I'm the future of this team, or going. I mean, he's going right now 27th quarterbacks. Wentz, Mayfield, Zach Wilson, all going ahead of him. Yeah, that's tough. He's a tough
watch him play.
At this point.
You can't have 10 touchdowns in 11 games and people want you to be on their team.
No, and they had a lot of injuries, and those receivers were awful even when they were on the field. It wasn't all him, but still, you have to just hope this new regime will help him. And if it doesn't, then have fun carrying a clipboard the rest of your life and get paid a few million a year for it.
I think they will. I think they will come in and help him out. But I don't know. It's fun. You told me is what, QB 27?
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? I have him higher than that. Let me check. That's QB 26. So yeah. I'm right about there with consensus.
Go.
But the guy that I could not be higher on, literally, because he is my fantasy QB1.
There we go.
Jalen Hurts.
Homer.
I cannot
Homer.
wait to talk about this fella. He was QB7 in points per game last year, QB9 overall, but he missed 2 games. And he did that with only 16 passing touchdowns because he had 784 rushing yards and 10 scores on the ground. He was a QB1 11 times. People were worried about him throwing the ball, but in the beginning of the year when Philly was throwing a ton, he was QB6, 10, 10, 4, 7, 5, and 6. He's good no matter what offense the Eagles want to run. And if you look at, he was number 1 in the league in fantasy points per dropback. He was 3rd in air yards per attempt. So he's throwing the ball downfield, and he was 12th in red zone completion percentage. So him along with Dak, they're both pretty good when it counts. rushing quarterbacks. He was top 2 in just about everything. He is the goal line back for the Eagles. It's not Miles Sanders. It's not anybody else. It's him. And then I'm going to bring this back up. If we look at Josh Allen broke out in year 3. Year 2 stats, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, 432 attempts, 461. 61% completion percentage for Jalen Hurts, 59 for Allen. Advantage Hurts. 3,144 passing yards for Hurts, 3,089 for Allen. Advantage Hurts. 16 touchdowns to 20 touchdowns. Advantage Allen. QBR 48.5 to 49.5. Advantage Allen. Hurts had better rushing stats. The Bills got Allen, Stephon Diggs. The Eagles get Hurts, A.J. Brown. Wheels up, buddy. Let's go. Jalen Hurts, QB1.
It's just at times torture to listen to you. But I suck it up for whatever reason for an hour a week. I have to wonder if you'd be as high on if he played on any other team, if this is just wishful thinking or not. But when we did our quarterback show a couple months ago, I thought I was ringing bells when I put him at my number 4, but no. Sir Robert Lewis Wall Esquire has to roll in and put him number 1 and just keep on with him the whole summer. And I have to listen to a million stats skewed in his direction. The guy's going to be a beast. I'd love to have him on my team. Somebody's probably going to overpay for him in my league because I'm pretty sure he's a free agent, and more power to them. I would like to see them not put him in so many situations where he's going to get popped, because it's a little different than what the Ravens do with L-Jax. Hurts was really taking some big hits last year. But I think Brian adding AJ Brown certainly is going to hurt his stat line.
I'm definitely dying on this hill.
So where okay, say since you're a lot higher on than others, he's not going to go in like the first 3 rounds in your league of rare. Where would be the earliest? And you can even throw in the fact, because I don't care what anybody says. We do this to win, but we also do it to enjoy the game. So when you're in between 2 guys, you're taking the guy you want to root for that maybe plays for your favorite team when you're sort of stuck between guys. So where would you take him, even with that in mind, the fact that like he's your guy, he's an Eagles quarterback. What's the earliest you'd say, like, man, he's still sitting here, I've got to take him here?
He's an auto pick for me in the 7th. I might go in the 6th. I'm not taking him earlier than that because, as we mentioned, he is a quarterback. And if I have to pick between Hurts in the 5th or Russell Wilson in the 10th, I'll take Russell Wilson in the 10th.
He's going mid-6th right now.
Yeah, and where we are, by the time the season starts, he's going to be going in the beginning of the 6th or the back half of the 5th. Yeah. And I'm just not going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to pull the trigger there.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask. Just wondering what you thought.
I know
you do think he's going to be your number 1 guy. So sometimes if you really truly feel that, obviously that's not going to make you take him in the 3rd round. But knowing the value that you think you're getting, sometimes you don't want to miss out on not getting the guy that you are pretty sure is going to be number 1. This wasn't like your bold prediction. This was our quarterback rankings.
Correct.
Correct. That you would maybe jump up to that 5th because this guy's going to be number 1. I'm not taking a chance of not getting him in the 6th or 7th. I'm going to jump up because if he's 1 and you're getting him in the 5th round, you still got some ridiculous freaking value.
Yeah. Well, same story with Josh Allen. He was my QB1 last year. I wasn't taking him in the first 4 or 5 rounds. So, and so he won't end up on many of my teams. And another guy that won't end up probably on, actually, I can tell you right now, he won't end up on a single team that I have. I don't care if I'm in a 20-team QB only league. I am not taking Carson Wentz. He was QB 13 last year, but he's QB 18 in points per game behind fellow NFC Easter Daniel Jones. Here's the deal, folks. If Howie Roseman and the Eagles are willing to trade you a quarterback, don't do it. It has never worked out since Howie Roseman took over. If he tries to give you a quarterback, don't take it. Colts, don't take it.
Yeah. Well, they
Commanders,
did it because
don't take him from the Colts.
Reich was there when he had his golden year or two, so he thought maybe he could be the quarterback whisperer for him again, but it didn't work. Let me ask this. Even when he was really good with Eagles, was there ever a time where you were fond of him, or did you even hate him then?
Never once. I thought for a brief moment that maybe I was wrong, but I was never fond of him. I'm glad you brought that up, though, because these NFL teams have been chasing this, and these analysts have been chasing this anomaly 2017 season where he threw 33 touchdown passes. He still only completed 60% of his passes that year. It's not like he was tearing it up all over the field. Yeah, he was scoring touchdowns.
He was the MVP front runner until, I'm not saying his stat line was perfect, but the dude, you got to give him a little credit. The dude was playing some pretty good football.
Absolutely. His touchdown percentage was 7.5. That's 2% higher than his second best season and 3% higher than his career average. It was an anomaly. It's not going to happen again. That's not who he is. It's who he was once.
Right. Let me ask you this. How much of this do you put on blame on Meghan Markle?
Okay. The joke, it's so interesting because you do this Prince Harry joke, even though I'm not fond of Wentz, but you think it's hilarious because you think they look alike. So you throw out the Meghan Markle joke, and we do it. This is at least the second time you've done on the show, and you do it weekly off air.
Yeah, I said during the season, he'll throw 4 picks, and I'll send you a picture of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle at their wedding.
It's such an odd thing that you do. It's very
I get such a kick out of it.
Well, one thing that the Prince does do well is he was 6th in deep ball completion percentage and 9th in QBR. But this is what gets me. He was 30th in clean pocket completion percentage. The dude couldn't complete passes when he was just standing there and had all the time in the world. We talked about how good Michael Pittman was at getting open. Wentz still couldn't get it to him. He only had 3 top 10 QB finishes. I mean, not a chance.
I wonder if he would have left Indy if he hadn't completely blown that last game and completely choked the playoffs away to the Jags of all people, if he'd maybe still be there. Maybe the ship had already sailed. I don't know.
Bring him after
that certainly didn't help.
Well, there were rumblings about how terrible he is in the locker room when he was in Philly. So I don't know why people thought that would change when he goes to Indy, but there are rumblings of that, how he's not good with coaching, and he didn't even, I can't remember if it was with Philly or if it was with Indy, but he didn't talk to the offensive coordinator, the QB coach for 2 weeks, not a word.
Yeah, that was
it's an odd thing, man. And it would be tough to bring him back after that Jacksonville game. If nothing else, your fan base would be livid. The Colts, there's no way the Colts fans wanted him back.
No, he's awful. I mean, I don't. It's also funny. Why do people even still talk about the guy? That's how awful he is.
I hear you. I mean, what's his ADP right now? He's
26th and 183.
Oh, yes. So he's down there.
Yeah, he's way down ahead of Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Even though he finished behind him in points per game last year.
Yeah.
All right. Move on to the running backs. Ezekiel Elliott. Just every year the dude gets it done. He's last year's RB6, even though he played through a PCL injury most of the season. And like Dak, he's never been lower than 11 in fantasy positional finish. Running backs, they all miss games unless you're Zeke. I think outside of his suspension, he's only missed 2 games because of injury. He was RB15 in points per game last year, so that's not great. But right now he's being drafted as RB16 behind Cam Akers and in front of James Conner, right in the middle of the 3rd round. So he's being drafted about how he per game. And everyone talks about Tony Pollard, and I'll get to him in a second, but Zeke averages more catches per game than Pollard does. But everyone talks about him like this elite pass catching back to Tony Pollard. Now, it's very slightly, but he still averages more catches per game. He was 3rd in route runs by a running back. Zeke was. He was 5th in red zone touches, 12 total touchdowns, and that's it, man. That's where your money is made in fantasy in the red zone, and he gets the touches. He gets
He
gets
sure
the
does.
touchdowns. He
It's
was only
good.
37th in yards created per touch. He's 45th in breakaway. He's not going to get you a 45-yard touchdown run, but he gets it done every year, always.
He's the beneficiary of a very high-powered offense. The thing I don't get with your things there is I don't consider Pollard a third back. I consider him a true handcuff, the guy who was his backup. But he still doesn't play nearly as much as Zeke. So it doesn't really surprise me that Zeke has more catches. Well, I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, Pollard's getting drafted as RB 30. Yeah. No, RB 30 now.
Oh, he's 32 on mine on the half point.
Okay. So, RB 32. That's a starter. You're starting him in your flex.
Yeah.
I don't want that. Do you want? I mean, he comes in for how many series a game? Now, I agree with you when you say handcuff, because if Zeke goes down, I want Pollard.
Yeah,
but I can tell you right now,
instantly.
Correct.
How many times did we talk last year? You and I, we'd be talking, texting, and we'd be just like, why is Zeke on the field? When Pollard's on the field, he's the most explosive guy on the field. Why do they even play Zeke so much? Is it because Jerry feels he has to get his money's worth? Is it Jerry's ego? What? Because you have to admit, this is like the worst I've ever heard you talk about Pollard, because usually you talk about him with this shining beacon that isn't getting a chance to shine his light on the league. But now it seems like you're down on him for some reason.
So Pollard is like that girl who's super hot, but has the absolute worst personality, and no one can stand to be around her. He was second in yards per touch and sixth in yards created per touch, third in breakaway run rate. This dude, when he has the ball in his hands, he looks great. The problem is he doesn't get that opportunity. So he looks great, but it's an awful situation to be in, because you put him out there, and I just looked it up. It was something like over half of his games, he got single digit points in fantasy. I can't have that in my flex. Right. Exactly. He is the ultimate what if player. But Zeke won't allow anyone to see what if, because he doesn't miss games, and he soaks up all the important touches.
He does. And he's definitely not, like I said, he's not a third down back. He's not a McKissick where in any given week you can put him in your flex because he might have 13 catches, 95 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Pollard is a true backup where every third or fourth series, depending on game flow, he's the guy, he's in the game for a whole series.
That's the best way to describe him. Accurate. Right there. That's it.
I don't know. Who do I want to? I mean, I'm thinking I would rather have him in the 7th round than take Zeke in the middle of the 3rd.
If I'm getting a guy in the 3rd round that's going to give me double-digit touchdowns, I think I go that route.
Maybe it's just so every year it seems harder and harder to trust that it's going to keep up.
I feel you. It just hasn't not happened yet.
Yeah.
No,
he puts up numbers. Numbers are numbers.
Yeah, that's right. I know. They're the exact opposite. The one guy looks incredible and doesn't put up numbers
because they don't let him play. It's not his fault. Yeah, they don't let him play.
I know. Well, one guy that is absolutely gonna play is Saquon Barkley. Injuries have been his biggest bugaboo by far. He's missed games every year except his rookie season. But he is so talented if he can stay on the field, especially this year. He's got an upgraded offensive line. We already talked about the coaching. He's got 3 seasons of over 50 targets. The guy doesn't want to come off the field. He doesn't have to. He has got a 3-down skill set. And if you look at his efficiency numbers from his rookie year when he was healthy, he is near the top in almost every single category. He suffered some injuries, and they're freak injuries. Now, we have already talked on the show about a guy that big shouldn't be able to move the way he does. And maybe his body won't be.
You and I called this before it ever happened. We both prayed to the fantasy gods and the football gods it wouldn't happen. But you and I were talking about this a year before it happened, that this dude, his running style, his speed, his size, his mass, something's got to give. And it sure as heck did.
The thing I'll say, though, is like that ankle injury, that wasn't his fault. He stepped on a guy's shoe and rolled his ankle, and that screwed a good chunk of his season up. Right now, he's going as RB 14, I think, in half PPR. I got him at RB 10.
Yeah, he's the guy in my mental list, my mental rankings is moving up about a spot a week.
Yeah.
Because the more I read about anything about that team and their schedule and this and that, how they want to run their offense through him, the more I'm thinking if he is healthy, he could end up top freaking 5. I'm not saying I think he
RB1
will,
in the realm of
but he
possibilities.
could. Yes,
he was RB2 as a rookie.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can stay on the field because there is nothing behind him.
Last year I gambled on him. It obviously didn't pay off. I'm willing to gamble one more time, but this is it, Mr. Barkley. This is it. If I gamble on you and you don't do it this year, you're in the doghouse for everybody.
The year the injury started, I got him in our league for $72, which at the time was the single highest any player had ever gone for in our league in their first year of their contract. And he was great for about 5 games and then just took the biggest pile of fantasy crap on me that a player could. It killed me. So then I think it was the next year, George, again, adding to this, he spends 80 on him, 81 on McCaffrey, and they're both out for the season within a quarter of each other. And guess who his number 1 receiver was? Cortland Sutton. George went on to win the toilet bowl. He won the Sacco in our league. He got his rainbow poop emoji, I suck at fantasy football shirt, which he still proudly wears to drafts. But since he's now retired, I assume the shirt is retired as well. But you talk about some bad luck. You had that one season where you had some real crazy crap. But that dude lost Barkley.
That's it.
McCaffrey and Sutton within a quarter of each other.
That's bad. Real bad.
It wasn't good for him, but we loved it because watching him lose the rest of the league, we just relished in it. Because he's that guy that finds all the loopholes, causes trouble.
Well, that's what he gets.
You got that straight.
Poor Miles Sanders. He was last year's RB 45. Huge disappointment, especially from a running back coming from a team with the most rushing yards in the league. Yeah. It's 0 touchdowns. That is not going to happen again. Boston Scott, the bane of my existence, had 7 touchdowns on 87 carries. That's a touchdown every 12 and a half carries. That also is not going to happen again. Sanders is talented. He averaged 5.5 yards a carry last year, and he's over 5 yards a carry for his career. He was tied for second last year behind Rashad Penny in yards a carry. For some reason, he only averages 2 catches per game. He's got that skill set. I think he's suffered some drops in his career, but he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's got very little wear and tear on the tires because they only give him 130 carries a year. So he was 5th last year in breakaway run rate. He had 15 or more carries 4 times last year. That resulted in rushing totals of 74, 94, 120, and 131. So if you give this guy 15 carries, he's got you 74 yards at a minimum. Get this guy the ball. What are we doing, Kevin? What are we doing?
I don't know. We talked at length about him in one of our episodes. Do you remember which one it was?
I don't.
And he was my turnaround player of the year because he's got nowhere to go but up, and the dude's just such a beast. And we would talk about he'd have 5 carries for 56 yards in the first half, and then he wouldn't touch the ball in the second half. And matter of fact, half the time he'd be over on the sideline with a jacket on. And we would talk even in the third quarter, we'd be talking like, what are they doing? Are the Eagles trying to lose? It just didn't make sense. And it still doesn't. He's got nowhere to go but up. They just have to use this dude. Mind-boggling that why is Boston Scott on the field so much?
I don't know. And Jordan Howard also.
Yeah. Why are they on the field so much? I understand you got to spell the guy. I mean, he came out himself there a few months and told the fantasy world, don't put me on your team because they'll never give me the ball.
Yeah, it's so sad. I just feel sad.
Crazy. I mean, he knows his reality. He's he knows it, that he doesn't understand it either.
His career, he's got over 5 yards a carry for a career. There aren't a whole lot of running backs that can say that.
I guess they don't like first downs in Philly. They like to make
They
it as
don't,
difficult as possible.
they don't like snapping the yards and getting halfway towards a first down on one play.
It's truly doesn't make any sense. Again, one of the most underutilized players in the league.
You keep setting me up with awesome segues because you just said one of the most underutilized players in the league. And we're going to go right into Antonio Gibson, who's RB12 as a rookie, RB10 last year, but he's RB20 in points per game. It wasn't always pretty, but being an RB2, which is so far as points per game go, that's what he was. He's never had less than 1,000 scrimmage yards in his career. He's had double-digit touchdowns both years of his career. He was 4th in red zone touches last year, but how many of those red zone touches are going to be siphoned away by the rookie Brian Robinson this year? He was 5th in evaded tackles and 8th in breakaway runs last year, but they lost Brandon Scherf. The O-line got worse. In the final 8 games, he was an RB1 5 times, but he was an RB3 or worse 8 times throughout the season. Here's the deal. For me and Gibson, if I am taking big swings early in the draft, or if I'm going wide receiver heavy, I don't mind getting a little boring with my RB2. That's when I'd be willing to take Gibson. But other than that, I'm probably going to steer clear. I'd be much more comfortable with him as my RB3 than my RB2, but his current price tag, he's RB19 or so. And I'm not going to be able to do that.
End of the 3rd round. It's funny because he's 19 at 34. And the next is Josh Jacobs, 20 at 42. So 8 slots later. Wow. So it's almost like Gibson's
that's
the
probably
end
Waller and Kittle
of the real guys people trust, and then it goes down to Josh Jacobs. I don't know, the dude's electric. He looks great on the field. He's played on 2 horrible freaking teams the last 2 years, and he still puts up numbers. When McKissick went out, oh, here's this guy. Oh, that's right. He caught about 1 million passes in college. Maybe we could put him in on 3rd down and watch him light the defense up. But as soon as McKissick came back, boom, back to the bench on 3rd down. Mind-boggling.
So weird.
I don't understand. I wish I had an answer, because it doesn't make any sense to me. Best thing that could happen to him, get traded.
Probably.
Go somewhere with
only to a team that's going to use. Yes, that's it. That's the caveat. I mean, if he was not on the Commanders, you'd sit there and be like, man, I wish they'd trade for Antonio Gibson. How great would he make that team?
Exactly. And you and I, we at first we talked about this before. We doubted him a little coming out of college, but then I started feeling it a little bit more than you did.
For sure.
Then, man, this guy,
he had came 74 touches, I think, in college. It wasn't a lot.
Right away and showed what all the hype was about, and he hasn't disappointed since. But playing for them, it's you go there for your career to be ruined.
And the other guys, Brian Robinson, the rookie, and McKissick, they're just late round guys, flyers, handcuffs. If I take Gibson, you better believe I'm targeting Robinson.
McKissick starts in my league on many weeks because, again, it's
which is fine
teams,
right? And PPR for sure,
and half-point PPR, and he's gonna be in the game. He's gonna get you some points. He doesn't have a super high ceiling, but he also doesn't have a super low floor. He's going to get you something in one of those flex positions,
and that's what you're looking for. And I mean, there's countless guys like James White, who that's their only role, is that pass catching 3rd down deal. And it pays off. It has for White. It pays off for McKissick. I mean, last year he was RB7 one week. He was RB14, RB13, RB15, RB6.
He's going as RB47 at 133. So we're talking beginning of the 12th round here. I would gladly take him in the 11th round.
As your what? Running back 4 or 5?
Something along there. I'm just saying that's bang for the buck. Yeah, I mean, that's wow. Because he's a guy you can plug in as a starter any freaking given week.
Yes.
So I wonder why he gets such little love.
I know, but I tell you, but the Brian Robinson thing, if I take Gibson and I got Robinson, the reason I'm doing that is because Now I don't have to think of, like, that player's playing for me every week, right? So
Right.
I have the Commanders running back.
Yeah, because
Now,
McKissick's not taking he's just
right,
strictly third down.
right. And you can't do that with every team.
Yeah,
But that's
Robinson's
a team
going at
where I think,
198.
okay, right. So I start
Get him
Gibson.
wherever you want.
I start Gibson, I bench Robinson. If Gibson gets hurt, then I just plug in Robinson and we roll with it.
Yep.
Right. So that's, again, not every team, but that's one team you can do that for.
Absolutely.
All right. Move on to a guy that we love that's been a letdown. That's CeeDee Lamb. Last year's wide receiver 19, but ready to get your bell rung. He's my wide receiver 4 right now. I have him above Devontae Adams. I have him above Jamar Chase. Everyone's been waiting for CD to have that breakout. A lot of us thought it was last year, you and I included.
Yeah.
We were wrong. But what everyone wants for Nick Chubb or Tony Pollard, it's happened for Lamb. The guy in front of them is gone. Lamb has the stage. Lamb is in the limelight. Mark Cooper got traded. It is the CeeDee Lamb show. He already had more targets and catches than Cooper last year. And I think I've heard a couple times in the last day or two, with all these injuries, CeeDee Lamb's the only healthy wide receiver Dallas has that has a career touchdown catch. And no other wide receiver on their team has a touchdown catch in the NFL. It's just Lamb. He was 12th in yards per route run last year. He was only a wide receiver 1 3 times. He was a wide receiver 3 or worse 9 times last year.
There were games he just wouldn't even throw to him. It was weird.
This is, now you know how I do. I'm a stats guy, and then I mix in a little bit of narrative, and then I come up with my projections, right? This is maybe the only player in the league where I'm sort of straying away from the numbers. I'm trusting his talent, his opportunity, and my gut. And I'll be honest, it's a little bit scary. I am more afraid of him and me having him as my wide receiver 4 than any other spot. I just know he has the talent, and now he has the opportunity. This is it, man. This is just like Barkley. If it doesn't happen this year, Lamb, I'm done with you. I'm over you.
And he's going at number 6 receiver, 16th overall. Would you take him that early?
Yeah, absolutely.
Number 4.
I'm taking him right after Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is my wide receiver 3.
Okay. Yeah, because they have Debo after him, Tyreek after him.
Which is wild. I cannot believe Tyreek. I don't care about. I can't believe you have Debo. Most people behind. I can't believe they have Debo behind him. I'm a little nuts.
I love Lamb. He's got all the talent in the world. Again, underutilized, and when he was utilized, it was just give up type plays. Nothing that he could turn into anything spectacular. It was just odd. It was just odd. So he's the man now. So put up or shut up. So this is going to be now.
And I like Tolbert. He's what, 6'1"-ish, 6'1", 195, 4.49 40 time. But he was good in college. He looked good.
Yeah.
I liked him. I liked watching this film. He was all right.
We'll see how it goes with that. But other than that, Dalton Schultz, somebody's going to end up taking him higher, giving him more money than he deserves. But
dude, he was tight end 3 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and just
he last year he was second in targets and second in catches on the team.
Again, he's the beneficiary of a great offense as much as it is that he's a great tight end.
But here's the deal with Schultz, and the reason I'm willing to go probably, I mean, was he my tight end? I don't know, maybe 4.
I thought he was both of our 6. I thought he was.
Well, I adjust my rankings all the time. I'll look it up now. But he was a tight end 1 11 weeks last year. 11 weeks he was a tight end 1. That's consistency that I am all about. You're right. Yep, he is my tight end 6. I might flip him with Waller though. He might end up my tight end 5 by the time this is all said and done.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I just love that consistency.
He's a beneficiary of a lot of good things just because that offense is so good.
Yeah. Then we go on to the Giants receivers.
Silliness.
Well, it's a conglomerate. Okay, I'm going to put all four of these guys together: Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson. Galladay had a horrible year last year. Toney couldn't stay healthy. Neither could Shepard. And Wan'Dale is an undersized but explosive rookie who dominated college. If you just want to have a little bit of fun watching football, put on Wan'Dale Robinson's college tape, because it's a treat to watch. KG Galladay had 37 catches in 14 games. That's not even 3 catches a game. That's
terrible.
Yeah. He's 2 years removed from injury now, so that's a good thing. Kadarius Toney did have that Dallas game that everybody and their mother talks about: 13 targets, 10 catches, 189 yards against Dallas. He was number 1 in juke rate, 17th in yards per route run, 7th in target rate. So he was not on the field much, but when he was, they went to him, and when he got it, he did good things with it. Sterling Shepard was hurt basically all year. Shepard, this was shocking to me. He played 3 games where he had 90% of the snaps. He had 9 targets, 10 targets, and 14 targets in those games.
Yeah.
I'd like that. If he could just be on the field, they go to him. Look, if you want a Giants receiver, you can have him. You can have your pick of the litter, because Toney's going at 47, wide receiver 47. KG's at 57. Wan'Dale and Shepard are going in the 90s. So you can have any of these guys you want. It doesn't matter. This is basically, even though this is a snake, so the one allure of an auction draft, which you do, is that anybody can have any player.
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
Here we go. Here, these are auction draft players in a snake draft, because all of them are going so late. You can have whoever you want.
Yeah, and then Slayton, he was a really good 2 years ago. He fell apart. They
Heard his
traded
name.
for Colin Johnson, and
That's our guy.
Yeah, and he had those couple really strong games at the end of the year 2 years ago at Jacksonville. They shipped him out. He goes here. They don't even play him. He had 11 catches last year. They're underperformers again. It's highest paid in the league, 5 touchdowns.
I'll gamble on Toney as my wide receiver 4 or 5.
If he can stay
Maybe
on the field and
KG.
doesn't act like
Right.
a diva.
Yeah, so we'll see. And then their tight end, the only one that's doing anything is Daniel Bellinger. And he's a rookie. He's got good hands, but rookie tight ends historically don't do well.
Well, Seals Jones is their, I guess, official starter right now, isn't he?
I don't know. Maybe. They don't know.
Yeah, I don't want any of them.
They're a little banged up. Yeah, correct.
Yeah,
you're not drafting any of those guys.
It's just trash.
AJ Brown, Eagles, they're pass catchers. He was wide receiver 26 in points per game. Not great. In 2020, though, he's wide receiver 11 and wide receiver 5 in points per game in 2020.
Yeah.
His biggest issue, along with these other guys, been his health. He's only played a full season once as a rookie. Last year, he was 7th in yards per route run and 7th in fantasy points per route run. So that's solid. That looks good. Very efficient player. He was 15th. This is my favorite part. And the last thing I'm going to say about him, he was 15th in route win rate, but he was 4th in route win rate versus man. And that's important, because if teams want to stack the box due to the Eagles' propensity to run, dude, AJ Brown could have some big plays, which is why he had big plays in Tennessee. They're stacking the box for Derrick Henry. They're going to stack the box in Philly. And dude, he's going to smoke DBs.
As far as wide receivers in the league, he is my second favorite to have the ball in his hands. Like when they throw it to him, I'm like, oh man, he might score. Number one for me is Debo, because Debo is the one that definitely, anytime he's near the ball, he might just take it from one of his teammates and go score. And AJ's my second, though. He can outrun you. He can bowl you over. He can catch between 3 of you and make you all look like fools. He's the man. But again, got to stay on the field.
No, that's it.
And how is he going to really be used? I know we all read the thing today about right now the offense is running through him at practice. Well, practice and games aren't the same thing, people. So we want to see him get used, but what are they going to do?
Well,
he's going to 11th now, 28th overall.
Yeah, and I have him. I think he's 10th, 9th or 10th for me.
Yeah, it's like mid third round.
And his running mate, Devonta Smith, well, he was wide receiver 30 last year. He's currently going as wide receiver 36. So that means folks think his 64 catches for 916 and 5 touchdowns are going to drop. I'm not sure that it will. He was the only wide receiver on a team last year that other teams had to scheme for, because the Eagles had no other wide receivers that anyone cared about. That's not going to happen with AJ Brown in town. He's going to be much more open. One thing he was lauded for coming out of college was his route running. Devonta Smith was, but he was 6th in average depth of target. So he's getting down the field as well. 15th in yards per route run. The only issue I have with drafting him is that he's going in the mid 7th. And normally by then I'm on my, wide receiver 3-ish kind of spot.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for a guy with a really high ceiling. And it's just, he doesn't have one. He's the second wide receiver on a team that runs the ball a lot. So he doesn't end up on very many of my teams, not on my mocks, nothing like that, simply because when he's going, I'm looking for upside. And I just see him as sort of as a floor guy rather than a ceiling.
I think his biggest upside, though, and things have changed the way he no longer has to be the number one receiver. I mean, he's going to get a lot of looks now that he didn't get last year. He had some good plays. I mean, he looked really, really strong at times. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about him. I mean, he's a guy that if he's at the right spot, I'll take him. He's certainly not a guy I'm targeting. Sure. I think maybe I'm barely higher on than you are, but not significantly. Like, I think he's going to be this guy that's going to win fantasy championships like Jalen Reagor does.
Yeah.
I just like mentioning his name.
I know. That's fine. Are you targeting Dallas Goedert? He was tight end last year. He's currently going as the tight end 8.
Yeah.
He was second behind Smith in just about every receiving category for Philly. He is one of the most efficient tight ends in the game.
Yeah, he's good.
He was 5th in target share among tight ends, 5th in yards after the catch, 2nd in yards per catch, 1st in yards per target, 1st in yards per route run, 2nd in target separation. So he's got a little wiggle in him, right? He can get open. So for me, you got yourself a tight end who's super efficient. When he runs routes, the quarterback is looking for him and throws it to him. Yeah. I mean, and AJ Brown might even open up the seam some for him. And if that happens, Goddard could smash his career best of 5 receiving touchdowns.
Right. Well, we talked earlier about know your league mates. Somebody in my league will spend about double or triple on him what I would spend on him. So have fun. He's all yours for $24.
Sure. Well,
I can't.
Nothing you do there.
I can't do that.
Yeah. Well, someone's going to draft him in the 4th or 5th round of a redraft. Yeah. Same deal. I'm not taking him there. This is wild. So I came up with this stat while I was looking. The tight end position last year is so close. And we talked about, tight end 5 to tight end like 13 or something. It was only separated by, 20 points or whatever. Goddard was tight end 10 last year. If you would have added in half point PPR, if you would have added a 3-yard touchdown catch to Goddard's stats, he'd have been tight end 5.
Yeah. So again, that's why I can't spend that much money on him, because I can get this other guy who gets one lucky touchdown and just jumped him by 7 positions. But I got this guy for $5.
One 3-yard touchdown catch would have made him from tight end 10 to tight end 5. So, that is ludicrous.
It is. That's exactly what we're saying. Like, I can't go but get him early in a snake. I can't spend all this money on him in an auction, because why?
Well, why? I hear you. All right. Last team, Commanders, pass catchers. This should be quick because none of them are good. And I thought McLaurin was good. And then I looked at the numbers and he's not good. He was wide receiver 26 last year, wide receiver 21 in 2020, and wide receiver 26 again in 2019. Now, Wentz's strengths. Look, he's throwing the ball down the field. It should help McLaurin. But dude, his ADP is 15, and I am not doing that for Mr. Terry McLaurin. He was 4th in air yards and 2nd in deep targets, but he was 31st in yards a catch. This poor guy is sprinting down the field. Quarterback is throwing him the ball, missing him, and then he's getting like a screen pass. Yeah. Like those are the passes he's catching. There's no way you can be 4th in air yards, but 31st in yards a catch. Those numbers don't make sense to me. But again, Wentz should be able to help that. However, McLaurin was 90th in target separation and 44th in route win rate. He's not, holding his end of the bargain either here. And people talk about my boy, Mike Williams. We got Hurts, we got Williams, same episode, as being hit or miss. McLaurin had weeks of wide receiver 3, 4, 5, and 9. Awesome. Scary Terry tearing it up. He also had weeks where he was wide receiver 57, 50, 60, 61, 57, 100, 50. He had 8 games, more than about half the season, where he was wide receiver 50 or worse.
So name one 50. Decent name since he's been in the league. One even mediocre receiver that he's had on the field with him since he's come in the league. Even one.
Right.
Meanwhile, Mike Williams has had Keenan Allen his entire career.
Sure. Now he has Jahan Dotson. So,
but that's the guy's played a grand total of 0 NFL downs. So
he's good though. They took him 16th overall, and there's a stat somewhere where
Jalen Reagor I think went 18th overall.
Okay, first off, he was 22nd.
Sorry, 22nd overall. My apologies.
Maybe it was 23rd. It was up there.
Oh yeah, 18's his number, right? Isn't he number 18?
I don't know. He should be number 00 on somebody else's team. Here's the deal.
He's so bad that he shouldn't have a number. He's got to be 00.
Just blank.
Seriously, you have to throw that in because you're talking about numbers in a freaking vacuum. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just saying this because the Mike Williams thing, but those are two really, really different situations. I would love to see if we flip-flopped them, what McLaurin could do with Herbert throwing them to him alongside Eckler and Keenan Allen and all these other weapons they have.
The route win rate bothers me.
Well, I think part of the problem too is he's double, triple covered on every freaking play. That doesn't help. I mean, he's their offense. Him and Gibson are their offense. But I'm with you. I don't know if I want to get him that high either, but some of these players on the the Commanders, the team, whatever they are now, man, what could they do on a real team?
So I will say Mike Williams was number 5 in total route wins, and he was 3rd in routes versus man.
Yeah, the dude can play, but like I said, I'd like to see what some of these guys could do if they weren't the only playmaker on the field.
I do think Dotson will help. I don't know that it's going to help enough for me to take him in the top 15 picks.
Yeah, well, they brought in Samuel last year. They brought in Samuel last year to what did he play? 1 game, 2 games, did nothing.
Yeah.
I can't see how Dotson's going to make them worse. I just don't like anointing these guys coming up that have not played a single down in the NFL yet.
And I feel you there, but I love Dotson as a late round dart throw. Wide receiver 5.
Oh yeah, especially my league where I can sign him for 5 years.
Yeah, for sure. All day.
But he's going to go because there's too many homers in the world, and he's going to go higher than what he probably should as far as his auction bid. I would be very surprised if I had really any real shot at getting him.
Lastly, would be Logan Thomas, a tight end. He is so talented. I mean, he was beast. Tight end 10.
Love him.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Tight end 10 in points per game last year. He was tight end 6 the year before.
Yep.
He's just got to stay on the field, man. There's so many guys, but they just got to stay on the field. And Wentz loves his tight ends. He made Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert viable. And if you remember, Zach Ertz had over 100 targets, the tight end, 4 times with Wentz.
Yeah.
And in 2018, Ertz had 156 targets, which I think his targets and catches were the most ever by a tight end in a season at that point.
I think you're right.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah, I remember even mentioned on our tight end episode 2 months ago that I wanted to give honorable mention to Mr. Logan Thomas because I really feel talent-wise, he's a top 5 tight end in the league. I really do feel that. But if you're not on the field, doesn't much matter.
That's right. And that'll do it. NFC East, unless you got something to add, sir.
I don't really. This is going to be an interesting division to watch, as it usually
NFC,
is.
right?
It's super interesting to you because your favorite team and most hated entity on earth are both in it. So yeah, I really think it should be fun to watch.
All right, sir. Everyone out there, thank you all so much for listening. Our tunes are by Flatline. Please check us out on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And it's at GYBR_podcast, at GYBR_podcast. Hit the like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Again, thank you so much for your time. We will catch you in a week. See ya.
Peace out.